What's up, y'all? Welcome to Draw Every Day. I'm Sean, and today we're going to be taking a look at two different Batman pieces that I did in the past. The first is a photobash of Ben Affleck as Batman that I did in September of 2015, about 8 months before we would see the first image of Ben Affleck as Batman. The second piece is a photobash of Robert Pattinson as Batman from mid-February that I built on top of the Batfleck photobash. I used the red test footage that Matt Reeves posted to Vimeo, but the full body shot and ears of the suit had yet to be revealed. I didn't time-lapse these while I was doing them, so instead we're going to go through each PSD layer by layer to see how they were built. But before we get to that, if you could click subscribe and then dance with the like button in the pale moonlight, I'd really appreciate it. We're giving away a graphics tablet at 1,000 subs, and I'm going to let you know how to enter at the end of the video. Alright, so the first piece that we're looking at is this mock-up I did of Ben Affleck as Batman. This was something that I actually did before Batman vs. Superman had come out. We hadn't seen what Ben Affleck was going to look like as Batman. We just had the initial announcement, and obviously you remember that it was met with a lot of derision. The Daredevil movie obviously had a lot of problems, but I didn't think that Ben Affleck was the main one. Speaking of, the Daredevil poster was the base for this mock-up that I did, and here you see the Daredevil poster in all of its glory, and I'm going to take you through the steps and how we turned it into a Batman poster. First thing I did was I desaturated everything. I flipped the canvas horizontal. The reason for doing that is so that no one will notice. Then I added in these buildings in the background. The buildings are from this little render that I found online. I'm not sure what it's from, but you can see these two buildings are the most prominent. I basically distorted it in perspective so that it would look like they matched the perspective of the buildings in the background already. Then I added this little angel to the front to make it a little more Gotham-y. The background buildings are a little more modern, so I wanted something like that. And I got it from this piece of art by David Finch. I'll put a link to his website in the description. You'll notice I labeled this layer "Don't Do This." I would not really use another artist piece of art like this again. I would just advise against it. This was obviously just something for fun. Even still, his piece of artwork was perfect, and I probably shouldn't have used it. So that said, moving on. I basically used it for his thighs and the bat symbol right here. The David Finch piece that I'd used pieces of, and this is the full thing right here. It is absolutely astounding, and I would highly recommend you go look up more of his artwork. He's one of the best Batman artists out there, and obviously I was highly inspired by this piece to kind of do a little Ben Affleck in a similar setting. Then we were adding gauntlets, and I was looking at maybe doing a Frank Miller style Batman, but I decided against it. Here I am playing around with that. I was also adjusting the musculature to fit his body a little bit better and desaturating things even more. There I'm just darkening the body a bit. Okay, now it's getting fun. I'm painting in the cape, extending the ears to get the super long ears that I like, and I'm starting to play with the grappling hook that he has. You can see on the cape I was doing this curled shoulder thing. I don't know what you would really call it, and I don't exactly remember where I first saw this, but I've always loved to draw Batmans with this. This was the final bat symbol that I settled on. I'm pretty happy with it. I think it's pretty cool. I replaced the building on the right with a more Gothic looking cathedral type thing. I don't actually remember where I got that from. It might be from The Dark Knight. Who knows? Painting in the grapple hook and trying to look at some designs for his boots and adding in some larger spikes to his arm. Used a picture of my hand here because I even then was not good at drawing hands. Still I'm not. It's cool. Drawing his grappling hook. This is just adding more details, like some shading to the bat symbol. I shrunk the size of the grappling hook. Here I'm putting in some work on his cowl. to get the shape exactly how I like it. And the next couple layers, I think, are just various details. And the final boots kind of went with the sort of Adam West style super flared boots. I thought that was cool. And then finally, just a little bit of foreground rain to match the rain that was in the background of the initial illustration. We added all of this stuff on top, and so we obviously had to add a little more rain to look like it was still set in the scene. So that was the final bit of my Ben Affleck as Batman concept. And all of that buildup was to bring us to this piece, which is my Robert Pattinson or Battinson Batman piece. I did this recently and posted it to Reddit, where it was mildly successful, and I'm going to basically take you through all of the steps that I took to convert my Ben Affleck Batfleck piece and turn it into this. First off, I wanted to show you some of my inspiration, which was obviously the Batman animated series, the zeppelins, the red sky. You know, him standing up there was already reminding me of the animated series. So here's some of the images. This shot of the zeppelins. We've got this painting of him, which is essentially where I was envisioning Robert Pattinson standing right here. And then finally, I even used the same font for the logo. I would love to see them, you know, make some reference to that in the film. I know they won't, but it was just such a perfect font, the Art Deco. So those were the basic inspirations, and now we're going to go through the layers on this one and see how this one was put together. Okay, all the layers are turned off, and we have my Ben Affleck as Batman piece here. First thing we did was shrink his head a little bit. The head was kind of long. I think Ben Affleck just has a bit of a long head, and it looked weird on the Daredevil poster, and I guess I kind of kept that. So I shrunk that. I'm painting out the hands and painting out the legs to make the frame a little bit smaller, since I picture Robert Pattinson as being a little skinnier than Ben Affleck. For some reason, I thought this wing needed to be different. Painting out background here, just various spots in the background. This is going to be a zeppelin at one point. Little shadows on the statue. And then we're going to desaturate the whole piece to get some, start at a neutral tone so that I can add the colors that I want rather than build on the colors that already were there. Here I'm placing the hand back. I made it a little bit smaller. It was kind of gigantic on the Ben Affleck version. Now I'm painting out the remnants of the Ben Affleck leg and glove that were larger than what I need here. Covering up the old hand, painting a new hand. Look at that. Oh, I just shrunk it. That's all I did. Now I'm darkening the legs. So here's the chest pieces from the test footage that Matt Reeves put on Vimeo. You'll remember it was bathed in red light. What I did, I took it, I desaturated it, adjusted the levels so that it was black and white rather than red, and created a smart object out of that, split it in half so that I could distort both sides of it to make it a different shape so that it would fit this body a little bit better. Then I added Robert Pattinson's face, as you can see here. Next, we're going to add in Robert Pattinson's face right here. I'll show you the photo that I used for this, which was this picture of Robert Pattinson in a turtleneck, which worked pretty well for someone in a cowl. I basically took this face, which was a little brighter, used my trick where I add an exposure layer and darken it, and then mask out parts to simulate the lighting of the scene. Then I added in some more facial details and painting a slightly different shaped cowl, adding in the white eyes, which are his signature, getting rid of the shoulder spikes. I love them, but they're not right for this Batman. Painting in some details on the neck and the cowl, adding some belt stuff. This is abs armor, and let's see, I believe I used Arkham Knight. Yes. Used this image of Arkham Knight from the excellent video game. The armor was reminiscent of the game. I think the movie is definitely a little bit inspired by that, and so I took this armor and basically used it to fill in the chest area. And in the finished version of the bat suit that I've seen in the set photos, it actually looks pretty close. Desaturating the belt, making it darker, adding some little shading to the chest. Here I'm adding some different leg stuff to make it look more like he has pants with some leather armor so that he'd still be very agile. Here I'm painting in more suit details, darkening everything, sort of tying it all together. This is just some grappling hook details. This was the new grappling hook. It's just a little more functional looking than the gold one that the other guy had. This was adjusting the chaps to give them a little more color. I don't know if chaps is the right word for those, but I keep using it. Here I am brightening up his bat symbol, adding a little more upper body stuff to make a little more of a black and gray duotone thing rather than an all black look. This is making the background red, and this is making the background even redder. I have a little note here to show you. I'm using advanced blending options. This is something that a lot of people don't know about. In the same spot where you add drop shadows and all that, it starts off highlighting on this blending options, and you might have wondered what these two gradients here do. And essentially they allow you to make that layer fall into different ranges of color. It's kind of hard to explain, and each time I use it I have to mess around with it a little bit, but the important thing to know is that both of these little triangles, or all four of them, can be split in two by holding Option, and you'll get some very unusual effects. One reason that this is helpful is if you have a very complex thing like a picture of a tree, you can try tweaking these to get rid of the sky, and it'll save you a lot of time masking. Here I'm adding a little more rim light to his cowl. This is going to tie in the lights coming from the zeppelin zoom, and that's what I'm adding here. Boom, 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 boom. These are the Zeppelin's lights, and if I drop one of these open, you'll see that there is a yellow layer set to screen, then a red layer set to overlay, then a red layer set to linear dodge, and that's what all of these have. And then I mask out the yellow layer to simulate light fall off over here. If I were to remove the mask from the yellow layer, you can see it would just keep going down and it looks a little more fake. So I'm basically fading it out and letting a little bit of the red show in so that it looks like the light is falling off. Here's some eyes on the Zeppelin up here. I guess they're not eyes, they're where the lights are coming from. Now we're going to desaturate the lower third of the image. Change his cowl just very subtly. A little more lights and details all over his body. I'm going to darken the bottom of the image. Desaturate his boots. Add some more rain. Add a little more rain in front of him. It's funny, we keep having to do that as we add more new elements. We keep having to add this rain in over it, and then I have to mask out all around it to make sure that there's not too much rain on the areas that already had rain. Here we're adding the high pass filter. I'm going to zoom in on this so that hopefully you can see a difference when I turn it on. Do you see how all of the white parts just get a little sharper? If you've ever wondered why no matter how much you use unsharp mask or God forbid sharpen on your images, it doesn't actually get that super crisp sharp look that you're used to, this is the trick. It's called high pass filter. Filter, other, high pass. You essentially run that and it changes this layer to gray. It looks very strange, but because all of this neutral gray, when you set it to overlay, doesn't do anything, and it's only the areas with color that are adjusted, it gives a real nice sharpen effect. Don't overdo it. Now we're going to add some chromatic aberration and lens blur on the background. This is just to give it a little bit more of a photographic effect. Finally, we are adding the text as if it were a movie poster. My watermark up top, a little bit of grain. Let me zoom in again. You can see this area is a little smudgy. This area's got some nice detail. And then his face has a lot of grain because it was a press photo. Well, I'm going to turn on this grain layer and you can just see how everything was sort of tied together now. Now there's not such a disparity between these two. This image is still a little bit blurrier, but because the grain is sharp, it tricks you into thinking this is all supposed to go together. I'm doing a color lookup layer here. This is the same foggy night one. I really like the effect it gives. If I turn it all the way up, you'll see it's kind of like making everything a little blue and desaturated. So I basically have it a little bit subtle here. I'm going to do a levels adjustment to make things a little bit more darker and high contrast. And the last step is a selective color layer. This gives it just sort of a signature look. Not everybody's going to feel the same way about this. Some people might think that it looks better here where you can see more of the details. This is really just a choice. You can see in the selective color adjustment, basically the blacks are a little bluer and a little less black than they were before. And if I go into the whites, you'll see that the whites are a lot less blue, a little less yellow, and a lot less black, i.e. more white. And so that's basically pulling those two color ranges in two different directions. I don't think I did anything to the neutrals. The reds are actually being adjusted a little bit. Looks like I took a little cyan out and and I pushed the magenta so that the reds are kind of popping a little bit more so that I get some of that Batman the Animated Series look. Okay guys, that's gonna do it. What do you think? Do you like the Batfleck or the Battinson better? I'm partial to the Battinson myself. I liked the Batfleck at the time, but looking back, it's one of the first digital illustrations that I ever did, and it's a little weird looking. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, we are giving away a Huion H610 Pro graphics tablet at 1,000 subs. All you gotta do to be entered is to subscribe, turn on notifications, like, and leave a comment on this video. That will enter you to win the graphics tablet as well as the $50 gift card to Imprint that we're going to be giving away at 750 subs. We've given one away at every 250 subs, and if you want to see if you won in the past, just search winner announced. Alright, that's going to do it for today. Thank you so much for watching the video. My name's Sean, this is Draw Every Day, and we'll be back with another video real soon.